She almost didn't notice when it started. That was the thing about it, the way it began so quietly, so gently, wrapped in something that felt exactly like love. There was no single moment she could point to later and say, that was it. That was where it changed. There was only a slow dimming, like a room losing light so gradually that by the time you realize you cannot see clearly anymore, you have forgotten what bright looked like. Her name was Leila. She was 28 years old. And she had a heart that trusted completely, loved openly, and believed with a depth that was both her greatest gift and the very thing that would be used against her, that people were, at their core, good. She had grown up in a home full of warmth. Her parents were not perfect people, but they were honest ones. When they were angry, they said so and then they let it go. When they were sorry, they meant it. When they said I love you, it came with no fine print, no conditions hidden underneath. Leila had absorbed all of this without knowing she was absorbing it. She had learned, before she had the words for it, that love was safe, that people who cared for you would tell you the truth, that the people closest to you would not use your softness as a weapon. She was not naive. She was not foolish. She was simply someone who had never been taught to defend herself against a particular kind of person, because in her world, that kind of person had never existed. His name was Marcus. She met him at a gallery opening a mutual friend, an evening that felt easy and accidental, and in hindsight, nothing was accidental at all. He was charming in a way she had not encountered before. Not loud, not performing. He was quiet and attentive. He asked questions and actually waited for the answers. He noticed the small things, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the specific laugh she had for things she found genuinely funny versus the polite one she used when she was just being kind. He noticed the difference. He told her he noticed. No one had ever paid that kind of attention to her. She fell slowly, and then all at once, the way falling works when you don't see it coming. Within 3 months, they were spending every weekend together. Within 5, she had cleared a drawer for him in her apartment. Within 8 months, she had introduced him to her parents, watched him charm her mother effortlessly, watched her father shake his hand with approval, and felt something deep inside her settle into place. This is it, she thought. This is what it is supposed to feel like. The first thing she noticed, the very first thread, was so small she dismissed it completely. They had made plans for a Saturday, a specific restaurant she had been wanting to try for months. She had booked the table 2 weeks in advance. That morning he had texted to say he wasn't feeling it, that he'd rather stay in. When she said she had really been looking forward to it, had already made the reservation, he went quiet for a long time. And then he said, in a voice that was very calm and very careful, I just didn't think you were someone who cared more about a reservation than about spending time with me. She immediately felt ashamed. She apologized. She canceled the reservation. They stayed in, and it was a perfectly nice evening, and she told herself she had overreacted. She told herself that needing things was selfish. She told herself that being flexible was part of loving someone. She did not tell herself what she should have, that she had expressed a completely reasonable preference, and he had made her feel guilty for having it. It built from there. Not dramatically, not with shouting or cruelty or anything she could have named clearly in the moment. It built in the particular way of water shaping stones slowly, steadily, in ways you cannot see until the stone has already changed. He began to have opinions about her friends. Not stated opinions, not direct criticism, something more subtle. A look when she mentioned Sana's name. A brief sigh when she said she was going for dinner with her college friends. A question asked so gently it didn't feel like a question at all. Don't you think Sana kind of brings drama wherever she goes? I just worry about the effect she has on you. He said it like concern. He said it like love. And Leila, who trusted him, began to see Sana through his eyes, began to notice the drama, began to feel a little tired after their evenings together, began to cancel plans, began to drift, She didn't realize she was being guided. She thought she was growing. He had a way of making her feel, in the same breath, both deeply chosen and permanently at risk of being unchosen. He would look at her across a room and smile the smile that was only for her, and she would feel like the most important person in the world. And then later, in a quiet moment, he would mention the woman at his office who kept finding reasons to talk to him. Would say it without accusation, would say it almost casually, and she would feel the bottom drop out of her stomach. And then he would reach for her hand and say, "You know I'm not interested in anyone but you." And the relief she felt was so overwhelming that she didn't notice that he had manufactured the threat and then offered himself as the solution. She started becoming smaller, not overnight, so slowly. She used to have opinions about everything, loud, certain, entertaining opinions that her friends loved and argued with and came back for. She used to take up space in a conversation without apologizing for it. She used to know what she thought before she knew what he thought. Now she found herself waiting, feeling out the room, checking his face before she fully committed to a feeling. If he seemed relaxed, she relaxed. If he seemed distant, she spent the next hours quietly trying to understand what she had done wrong, running back through the day, searching for the moment she had failed him. She had outsourced herself to him without realizing she was doing it. The fights, and they did fight, eventually had a texture she had never experienced before. They were not like the disagreements she had grown up watching, the ones that were direct, and then resolved, and then over. These were different. These were circular. She would raise something, a specific thing, a real concern, and within minutes she would find herself defending her character, her motives, her sanity. How do you know that's what happened? Are you sure you're remembering it correctly? You tend to get very emotional, and when you're emotional, you don't always see things clearly. She would walk out of those conversations more confused than she had walked in. She would sit alone afterward, trying to reconstruct what had actually happened, trying to hold on to the original thing she had wanted to say, finding that it had slipped away from her somewhere in the maze of his reasoning, and she wasn't sure anymore whether she had been right to bring it up at all. She began to trust herself less. That was the quiet catastrophe at the center of everything. She began to think that her emotions were unreliable, that her perceptions were distorted, that the version of events in her mind was somehow less true than his version. She began to preface her own feelings with "I might be wrong, and maybe I'm being too sensitive," but disclaimers that had never existed in her language before him. She began to apologize for her own experience. And still, she loved him. That is the thing people never quite understand about this kind of relationship. She loved him, genuinely and completely. Not the manipulation, not the confusion, not the steady erosion of herself. She loved the man she had met at the gallery, the one who noticed the difference between her laughs, the one who made her feel seen. She was still in love with him, and so she kept looking for him. She kept trying to find her way back to those first months when everything had felt so clear and good. She kept thinking that if she could just understand what was going wrong, she could fix it. If she could just be a little better, a little more patient, a little less emotional, everything would go back to being what it once was. She didn't understand yet that what it once was had never entirely been real. The moment that changed things came not in a single dramatic scene, but in a quiet Tuesday evening. Unexpected and ordinary. She was on the phone with her mother, a phone call she had kept shorter and shorter over the past year, without fully knowing why. Some instinct telling her to protect something, to keep it separate. Her mother asked how things were. And Leila opened her mouth to say "really good," the way she always did, and what came out instead was nothing. She just stopped, just sat in the silence, and her mother said, very softly, "Leila, when did you last feel like yourself?" She couldn't answer. She searched for an answer and couldn't find one. And that absence, that blank where an answer should have been, was the first real light she had seen in a very long time. Because a person who feels like herself always knows the answer to that question. She started to pay attention after that. Not with anger, not yet, she was still too confused for anger. Just with a new, careful, very painful attention. She started noticing the patterns. The way her good mood always seemed to require his permission. The way she had stopped talking about things that mattered to her because they were always gently redirected toward him. The way she had stopped seeing Sana, stopped talking to certain friends, stopped being the person those friends had known, and how gradual it had all been. How she had done so much of it herself without realizing she was being steered. She talked to Sana. The conversation was awkward at first. There had been distance between them, and Leila carried guilt about it. But Sana was generous, and Sana said, sitting across from her with the directness she had always loved about her, "Leila, I've been worried about you for a year. You don't laugh the same way. You don't say what you think anymore. It's like you check yourself every 5 seconds. I check myself every 5 seconds." She turned those words over for days. She ended the relationship. It was not clean. It was not peaceful. He cried. He apologized with a warmth and specificity that briefly made her question everything again. He said she was misunderstanding everything. He said she was making a terrible mistake. He said the things, in the particular order that made her heart contract, and she felt, one last time, that pull toward making it easier for him. She let herself feel the pull. And then, she did it anyway. The months that followed were hard in a way that surprised her. She had expected to feel free. She did, eventually, but first she felt confused, hollowed out, uncertain of her own mind, in a way that didn't lift just because she had left. Manipulation doesn't end at the door. It travels with you. The voices stay, the ones that say you're too sensitive, that you don't remember things clearly, that your feelings are disproportionate, that you need to be careful about trusting yourself. Those voices took time to quiet. She went back to Sana. She went back to her mother. She found a therapist who helped her understand, with patience and without judgment, what had actually happened to her, not as a failure, not as stupidity, but as a very precise psychological process that worked best on people who loved openly and trusted deeply. On people like Leila. On people like, perhaps, you. She rebuilt slowly. She learned to trust her own perceptions again, one small moment at a time. She noticed when something felt wrong, and she let it feel wrong instead of immediately explaining it away. She practiced saying what she thought before checking anyone else's face. She sat with the discomfort of having needs, and she let herself have them anyway. She started laughing the way Sana remembered. It took longer than she wanted. It was less linear than she had hoped. There were days she missed him with an ache she couldn't justify to herself. And she let herself miss him, without letting that missing mean she had been wrong to go. She learned to hold two things at once, that she had loved him genuinely, and that she had also been hurt. That both things were true. That love being real doesn't mean the harm wasn't real too. And somewhere in the middle of all that slow, imperfect rebuilding, she found something she hadn't expected. She found that she was stronger for knowing what she now knew. Not stronger in the brittle, defended way of someone who has closed herself off. Stronger in a clearer way. She knew now what her instincts felt like before she talked herself out of them. She knew now what it felt like to be slowly redirected away from herself. She knew the specific texture of being made to feel that her emotions were the problem, and she would never again stay somewhere that made her feel those things. Her trust did not disappear. She had been afraid that what happened would make her someone who could never fully open again. But trust, she discovered, is not a door that can only be open or shut. It is something more intelligent than that. It is something that, when it has been broken and rebuilt carefully, knows more than it did before. Leila still trusted. She trusted more wisely now. She knew what trust looked like when it was safe, and she had learned to feel the difference. There is something about Leila's story that may sit inside you in a particular way. Maybe you have been in a relationship where you slowly became less of yourself, and you couldn't understand how it happened. Maybe you have sat inside a conversation and walked out of it more confused than when you entered, carrying guilt for something you still cannot name. Maybe you have caught yourself checking someone's face before you let yourself feel something. Maybe you have wondered, at some quiet moment, when you last felt like you. Emotional manipulation is one of the most disorienting things a person can experience, and one of the reasons it is so hard to name while you are inside it is that it never announces itself. It comes dressed in love, in concern, in closeness. It comes from someone you trust, and that is what makes it so damaging, not only what it does to you in the moment, but what it teaches you to do to yourself. The first thing to understand is that being manipulated does not mean you were weak. It means you were trusting, and that trust was used in a direction it was never meant to go. Women who love generously, who give people the benefit of the doubt, who want to believe the best, these are not flaws. These are qualities of enormous depth and humanity. A person who exploits those qualities is not revealing your weakness, they are revealing their own. The second thing, your emotions are not the problem. One of the most common and most damaging tools in emotional manipulation is making you believe that how you feel is disproportionate, unreliable, or simply wrong. If you have been told often enough that you are too sensitive, too emotional, that you remember things incorrectly, that you misunderstand, you will eventually begin to believe it. And once you stop trusting your own inner world, you become dependent on someone else to tell you what is real. That dependence is not an accident. It is the whole point. Your feelings are information. They were right. Trust them. The third thing is about the small erosions. Manipulation at its most effective works incrementally, in steps so small that each one seems almost reasonable. One canceled plan. One gentle skepticism about a friend. One carefully placed moment of insecurity followed immediately by reassurance. Any single one of those moments, extracted and examined, might look like nothing. It is the pattern that means everything. And so if you are in something now, and you are reading this, and something is quietly stirring in you, pay attention to the pattern, not just the moments. Ask yourself not did this one thing feel wrong, but when did I stop feeling like myself? The fourth thing, isolation, is how it sustains itself. You were guided away from Sana, away from the friends who knew you before, away from the people who would have held up a mirror and shown you what was changing. This is not coincidence. Connection to people who knew you before, who love you without condition, who will tell you the truth. That connection is the very thing that makes manipulation harder to maintain. If there are people in your life you have drifted from, people you used to feel easy with, consider reaching back. Not because someone told you to, because you remember who you were around them. And the fifth thing, the one that takes the longest to truly land, you are allowed to love someone and also leave. You are allowed to grieve the relationship and also know you were right to go. You are allowed to miss someone and also not return. Love is not the only thing that matters in deciding whether something is good for you. Love is real and important and worth honoring, and it is also not sufficient on its own. You can love someone who is not safe. You can love someone who is slowly costing you yourself. And the hardest, most important piece of wisdom about that is this: choosing yourself is not a betrayal of love. It is the only way to save it, the love you have for yourself, which is the beginning of everything else. Leila still has the warmth she was born with. She still trusts. She still loves generously. She did not let what happened harden her into someone unrecognizable. She let it teach her instead. She let it make her more fluent in her own instincts, more honest with herself, more willing to walk away from anything that asks her to be smaller. She is still the woman who notices the beauty in things. She just knows now that she is also worth noticing. And so are you.